So just want to talk real shortly about reference states, and how those are developed, what it is, and how reference states are actually developed. So, reference state is that state where the capabilities represented by soil and site stability, hydrologic function, and biotic integrity. Remember, these three things we've discussed in our discussion of range. The 17 range health indicators give us a sense of this. Are performing at or near optimum level under the natural disturbance regime. So there's a couple of things here. We're admitting, number one, that there is a disturbance. There are disturbances that happen that are completely natural, and that's something that we can expect to happen in any rangeland, in any natural ecosystem. What we're looking for from a reference state is that near optimum level, right? That not necessarily pristine level, but the level that is allowed by the highest capabilities of that kind of ecosystem. So when we think about a reference state, when we've seen the state and transition models, we know that within those state and transition models, we have the possibility of having several different kinds of plant communities within that state one or climax plant community box. So a reference state doesn't have to be a single type of plant community. In this particular one, we've got a reference state with community A, B, C, and each one of these is a version of the reference state. So what do you need in order to actually say what is that potential for a particular ecological site? First of all, ecological site descriptions, and hopefully these will exist in some kind of form, whether it is a pending form. The NRCS office may have a draft form of this ecological site description, but that is one of the initial keys to understanding what kind of rangeland you're on and what the potential capabilities of that rangeland are. The second thing you want to make sure you have your hands on or have at least seen for that particular site is the soil survey information. Now, Web Soil Survey is a tool that we've looked at in this class before and learned how to use. It is a very important resource for all range management. It is one of the key physical characteristics of rangeland, and you need to be able to understand the scope and the breadth of information that the Web Soil Survey actually gives to you. And then there's people. People are a resource. Old-timers are a resource. People who have lived in the area for their whole life are a resource. And that resource is recordable. So memory, just because of memories fade, doesn't mean that they are incorrect. And so using people as a real resource to determine what the capability or what the trend of a rangeland is key, and you have to be able to have that capacity to deal with and to get information from people. More people. So here's this is just to throw in there with the status as of 2002. It has since increased, but you can see that there are major regions in the West, major regions of rangeland that don't have soil surveys available. And these aren't just regions that are national parks or something like that, right? I mean, we have Yellowstone National Park right there that has a completed soil survey. So there's various states of completeness and revision and historicity. When they were produced in history, do they need to be updated, that are happening throughout the United States in terms of the soil survey. Ecological reference areas is another piece of information that you hopefully will have access to. And when we say ecological reference areas, this definition: a landscape unit in which ecological processes are functioning within a normal range of variability and the plant community has adequate resistance to and resiliency from most disturbances. Right? Again, the admission that there are disturbances on rangeland. There's various climate changes that can happen. There's fires that come through. There are droughts. There are overgrazing events, or just plain old grazing events, or herds of wildlife that move through. I mean, there's all kinds of things that can invoke a disturbance on rangeland. Really, where we would find these might be special management areas. You could have things like national monuments, national parks that fit into this kind of category. And this is the well-managed rangelands. This is one place where it would be important for you to actually be a community member wherever you are, wherever you're involved with range, wherever this class takes you, or whatever involvement you have with rangeland. You may want to become part of that community, if nothing else, than to learn who are the good managers, who are the ones that are respected in the community for the way that they treat their range and the improvements that they put on, that they make on the range. That can actually lead you to areas that would serve as these ecological reference areas. We've seen exclosures before, and over on the right-hand side here we have an exclosure that may allow certain wildlife species to utilize that while restricting other species, and those might be helpful in determining a reference area for the areas that you're in. You want to do several things as you're moving through this process of understanding ecological reference areas. Again, since range is a long-term process, you only have a finite amount of time, and that time needs to be used to verify things, to establish baseline. So baseline means sort of foundational, the first level of information, the first level of data that you can always come back to, that you can always record and come back to. And again, we can't emphasize enough the idea that the community that surrounds that rangeland are some of the people who care the most about that rangeland and can be resources for you as you're trying to determine what the capability of rangeland is, what the history of that rangeland is, and so forth. So that brings us to this expert knowledge. Okay, expert knowledge, not only found in what we said before in terms of old-timers, but also academicians, people who specialize in the study of ecosystems and in rangeland management, who can serve as a reference or a resource. So, for instance, if we were in Wyoming and I've bought several hundred acres of rangeland, and I was wanting to go through this process of really categorizing what I had, determining what the land was capable of, I might call the University of Wyoming or Montana State University and ask for their rangeland specialist, ask for a rangeland specialist or an extension specialist who deals with rangeland, and I might get them to come look at my land, and because they have a seasoned eye, a trained eye, they're going to be able to make a lot of conclusions about the rangeland that you own or you manage based on the breadth of their knowledge. So you don't want to ever ignore that. You don't want to start from scratch. You want to use as many resources as you feel comfortable using and as are available to you. Meetings like this. Now, this is a meeting in another country, obviously, but extension meetings, field days, range education days, range camps, all these kinds of things serve as networking opportunities for you to get involved in what's happening in range management. And I can't encourage enough all different kinds of extension meetings or meetings for all kinds of meetings for ranchers and producers, rangeland managers, and those sorts of things. Keep your eyes open. Those are typically low cost or free, and there's a lot of good information that happens at those meetings. Other data, any other data you can get your hands on, even if that data may not be exactly in your region, it might be useful to you if it's a similar kind of region, right? If it's a similar kind of rangeland, and there's studies done on that rangeland that you can get your hands on, that might help you understand the rangeland that you have if it's fairly similar, say the similar precipitation regime or similar plant composition. So this is all to give you that standard, right? This is to set the stage for a standard of what this rangeland can be, what it currently is, what it's been in the past. And so you need to be able to evaluate and be able to know how much you need to trust in that information. And so again, bringing in other people, bringing in outside eyes. There are rangeland consultants. There are people at the university who specialize in extension services, specialize in helping people understand the resource that they have, and just make a case again for using those resources, right? It's taxpayer-funded resources, taxpayer-funded education that you have access to, and you should make full use of those that education. And one of the ways you can make full use of that is after you've collected a lot of this information, and do it in association with your NRCS office, your nearest NRCS office or regional office. That having those other eyes, having additional input, can be really beneficial to you.